Today's tutorial is going to be about seamless textures. How to do a seamless texture using Photoshop. Like, this is one of the first things you have to learn when you want to do some texturing. So basically, I'm going to just open this file. It's I take a lot of pictures of interesting textures when I walk around. People usually take selfies or other things. I take walls and floors and grounds. It's very boring and people look at me strange, but that's the way. That's what I do sometimes to get some texture reference. So this is just like a regular, like, raw picture from my camera, and you can see it doesn't have a conventional size. Well, it has a conventional camera size, but not a conventional texture size. If you want to do a conventional texture size, it has to be most of the time square, or it has to follow a certain rule in powers of 2s. So for this one, we're going to do 2048 by 2048. 2048. That's going to be a square texture. I'm going to explain this in case you don't know. So the top left, when I click on this arrow, the top left means that this texture, the picture of my texture, is going to start in the top left corner of my new canvas size. So since my new canvas size is different from the size of my texture, some pieces will be cropped and some pieces will be widened. But my texture, the picture itself, is going to start in the top left corner. So I click OK. Yeah, the new canvas size is kind of different. You proceed anyways, and that's what you get. So it's cropped on the side a little bit, but it's blank on the bottom, and that's okay. So basically what you want to do is take your first layer, you unlock it, and then realign it somehow. So either you can either keep this element or you can remove it. If you want to have a seamless texture and you want to tile everything, you probably won't want to keep this. So for this example, we're going to remove it. So basically what you do, you use the clone stamp. I'll just get another layer just to be sure, to be safe, and use the clone stamp and use the tools in Photoshop. So Alt, use a big brush and a hard brush, and you just paint over it. So let's see, I'm going to use this brick. This brick is fine. It's important to not use always the same areas. So try to just click on different areas from your canvas. Don't always pick from the same side of the texture. Like, move around your texture, like source another part of your texture. That way it doesn't look like everything was cloned from the same side. As long as it doesn't look repetitive, you'll be fine. Alright, now this brick, probably source maybe this brick over here. That works fine. That. Whoa, that's strange. Use this brick instead. Oh, it's too small, that's why. Use this one then. You don't have to get everything perfect the first time, because you're going to see we're going to do some more edits anyways afterwards. Let's see, source this brick to do the top here. Well, actually maybe this corner. That. Here you go. And for this corner, we'll source, let's see, we haven't used this one yet. Like that. So it's important to not make everything look too repetitive. And that's not too bad. That's pretty good. Alright, so for the top, I'm obviously missing a piece. So I'll just clone something again. Let's see. Doesn't really matter. We'll do this one. Actually, there's our half bricks here. No, we're going to start from a brand new row of bricks. So we're going to start here. Yeah, that's better. Use a bigger brush. So basically, I'm like repeating this row of bricks, but that's okay. Alright, so I'm just filling the area. Use a bigger brush so it goes faster. You get the idea. Alright, so basically we filled the canvas. Just make sure we don't have any holes. Alright, that's the canvas. The whole canvas is with a new texture. So we just make sure it's cropped, because as you can see, I'll just go back and explain. When I select this layer, the layer is still a little bit bigger than the canvas size. So if I want to tile this, Photoshop is going to tile the actual size of the texture and not the canvas size. So just to be sure, we're going to crop it to the size of the canvas. When you crop it like this, it gets rid of everything else. Well, it's supposed to. Do it again. Like that. Crop. Delete. Cropped area. Alright, so now it's supposed to be the right size. Perfect. Now to get a tileable texture, you just go to Filter, up here in Photoshop, whatever the version, and under Other, you have Offset. You never really use this filter except for textures. And basically, it just rotates your texture around. It wraps it around the canvas using the values in the horizontal direction or in the vertical direction. So what you want to do basically is put like a big the wrapping around where it intersects, where it wraps around again, makes a big T or a big cross. You want to put that in the middle of the canvas for now. So horizontally first, something around there, and then vertically, something around there. And you say okay. And now you fix the seams, because what makes the texture repetitive is the seams. If you get rid of the seams, then your texture looks authentic. It looks original. You just get rid of the seams. You can even change the brush, because the round brush is often sign that you have actually used a clone stamp. If you use a brush that has another shape, it's harder to notice that you Photoshop things. The human eye doesn't see every single detail, so I'm going to have an issue here. Either the brick either goes down or goes up. It's not going to do a zigzag shape. So in this case, I'll just make the brick thicker or higher. So you can either delete when you make a mistake or undo, or just go over it again. Use another clone stamp from another source and correct it over and over again. And that's basically my method, because it's faster to just clone stamp over and over rather than going Control Z, undoing and then redoing. The pieces that are missing for your brick, or the part that you want to clone stamp, like I'm missing this bottom corner because this one looks too straight. So you look for a brick that has a bottom left corner, let's say this one, and you clone stamp this one over this one, and it should look a lot better. For the edges of the bricks, I use like something like a smooth brush like this, and for the interiors, for the seams, I'm going to use something that's harder to identify. So I'm going to use something like this, or a rougher brush, or a more organic shape. So what do we do here? Because I'm always going to have this issue, the whole height of this texture, everything is kind of misaligned for this top portion that I added. So if I always like fix things the same way, like if I always like join the two in the same fashion, it's going to look strange. So it's important to like make different decisions and work differently when you're trying to fix the seams. Don't always fix the seams in the same way you did for every single seam. Try to mix things up. So in one case, I'm going to make a brick longer. So forget this brick. I'm going to completely do another brick. I'm going to use this bottom corner here. Actually, maybe another one. Maybe this one, because it looks more interesting. And this will be the bottom of this brick. And forget all the bottom parts. Like that. It's important not to have all the textures, the seams stop in the same areas. So in this case, this brick is going to go across where the seam was. So that way there's no interruption in the texture flow, which is better, and you won't notice it as much. I'm trying to do this kind of as quick as possible because I don't want to spend too much time. It's kind of repetitive, but as long as you get the idea. Sometimes you're going to stumble upon bricks that are much clearer than the ones next to them. So when you clone stamp things, the colors won't match. Now, obviously bricks are not always the same color. Some are darker, some are clearer. But it's kind of important to get still a coherent match of what it was before and what you wanted to give after clone stamping it. Because it's never going to be perfect. This time around, there's going to be one more round of editing, and after that we should be done. So I'm just going to speed this up a little bit more. Trying to make these tutorials as short as I can, because when they're repetitive, I know it's kind of long to watch them. I've been there before. Kind of notice that we can still see the seam, kind of. Maybe we notice it because, well, maybe I notice it because I know it's there, or maybe we notice it because it's visible. Sometimes when you work on textures, you see things nobody else notices, or on the contrary, you don't notice but everyone else sees. So it's kind of a habit to try to pick up as quickly as you can. But basically what I do is just ask somebody else, do you see the seam in my texture? A colleague, a friend, or even a family member. Anyways, I think we're not too bad for now. So what happens now? Well, you do another round of filtering and offsetting. Offset, and you find another position, and you take a look around and see if you notice what's repeating and what's not repeating. Doesn't look too bad. Some areas don't have as much detail as other areas. That's because when you clone stamp and you use a soft brush, you use this brush, like the edges are much blurrier than the center. So when you clone stamp something, the edges of your clone stamp, if your brush is soft like this, gets a little bit blurry. That's why I try to alternate between a hard brush and something much softer with something more organic like this. That way you don't notice as much as the clone stamping gets blurry. You don't notice it as much. So I'm just going to go over some of those areas with a more organic shape clone stamp brush. Just want the cement, I don't want the bricks. Let's see over here. Anyways, it's not going to be perfect, but you get the idea. You can always spend more and more time. And this is kind of a redundant process, so you can always come back to your texture and fix it more or do something a little bit differently until you get it just the way you want it. It's always the same technique. Just make sure that nobody notices where you put the seams. Filter, offset. Do you notice anything? Where does it begin? Where does it end? Nobody knows. And when you're done, you just save it out as whatever file you want. And that's it. That's for the tutorial for today.